In November of 2005, the Texas Supreme Court declared the school funding system unconstitutional for two reasons. Number one, the $1.50 cap on local school district taxes was a de facto statewide property tax. Number two, the system did not allow school districts meaningful local enrichment dollars, also known as discretionary dollars. In response, the legislature passed House Bill 1, which did two things. Number one, it reduced all local school district property taxes from the $1.50 cap to $1 per $100 valuation. The legislature said it would make up the difference with a new business franchise tax. In reality, it created a $4 billion structural deficit. Number two, it granted districts some local discretion by allowing them 6 cents of local taxing authority. These golden pennies are especially significant because they are not subject to recapture. In an effort to fulfill its constitutional obligation to fund public schools, the legislature promised school districts that their funding levels would not fall below the rates that were in place in 2006. It froze an educational funding system in time. That system based funding on target revenue, which represents funding per student. In 2006, target revenue varied widely from district to district, ranging from just under $3,700 per student to over $12,000 per student. Even if a community's local property values went up, the state's contribution went down. The only way local school districts could raise additional revenue was through an enrollment increase or by raising taxes using either golden pennies or by calling for a public vote for a tax increase. So what has happened in Austin since 2006? The structural deficit created by the business franchise tax for property tax swap was more than $4 billion every 2 years. 4 years ago, this deficit was filled by state surpluses. 2 years ago, the deficit was filled by federal stimulus funds. Now, Texas is out of options. There are no surplus revenues or available fund balances that are not committed to other uses. But the deficit is still there, and it's growing because Texas's school population is growing. By how much? 200,000 students in the last 2 years. That brings the total Texas public school population to 5 million students. Where does that leave us today? The state is facing a funding shortfall of $5.2 billion for its public schools. The legislature is planning to distribute the $5.2 billion shortfall to all districts by imposing a 5.2% across-the-board cut in the 2011-2012 school year. In 2012-2013, many other districts are expecting more drastic cuts. The amounts will be determined by their target revenue. Those with the highest target revenues will experience more cuts. The state is expected to announce a new target for all districts, but that amount is not yet known. Districts with higher target revenue amounts are expecting continued reductions in revenue per student for the next 5 years through 2017. The state is required to provide an adequate amount of funding to all school districts. Even while funding was being cut, the legislature was increasing the standards used to educate our children. College preparedness is now the goal of our public education system. The state is required to provide adequate local discretion to districts. Districts must have the ability to generate funds to be used in local enrichment efforts. Additionally, the system should be designed to grow as the student population grows, so that the state is not embroiled in major funding lawsuits every few years. When our parents ask us how they can help, we suggest two things. The first is communication. Lawmakers need to hear from you. Please urge them to fix the problem by allowing local districts to have more control over their local decisions and dollars. And please help us spread the word about this urgent situation to other community members.